All right, hi guys. This is the ALC podcast, Art Love Collective podcast. My name is Michael Lay, and this is Tony Dean.
Heyo.
Uh, and today we have Dave. Is it Stroman? Am I pronouncing that right?
Yep, that's right.
We have Dave Stroman here as our guest today, which I'd like to introduce pretty soon. Well, he's into screen printing, and we want to talk about screen printing and like other kinds of like techie art for our audience members that might be interested. But just as in terms of like Art Love Collective news, I'm working on the third publication for the zine, our third issue. We're going to be working on another mural at Columbus Relief, which is one of our sponsors. And on April 3rd, we're going to be having an online show and sale. So we'll be kind of trying to pump out a bunch of information out for that, try to get a lot of people interested in being able to buy some artwork on sale. And we're gonna try to get performers to perform virtually. It's going to all be a virtual sale. So hope you guys can have fun with us, and let's get started on this interview. So Dave, do you mind introducing yourself generally, please?
Sure, not a problem. So I'm Dave Stroman. I've been living in Columbus for quite a while now. I've been living here for 10 years, and I've been in the screen printing industry for about 11 years now. So, and I work here locally at Abercrombie and Fitch, so I do a lot of research and development for them. But on the side, I do my own business called Spear Print, and I'm just getting started. But I'm starting to do some of my own stuff, and then I also have some of my own art, music, and that type of stuff. So,
could you say so? Spear Print, is it spearprint.com, or do you have a website? Or
I don't have a website just yet,
okay.
As I just got started in 2020, so I'm kind of gearing all that up. But it's Spearprint LLC.
Oh, cool! Very cool. You got the LLC.
Yep.
Very nice.
Yep.
Spear print, like the spear weapon spear.
No, it's actually kind of a play off of spearmint.
Oh, okay.
Spear print, because I'll be doing prints.
Oh, that's right. So it's like spearmint, replace the M with PR.
Yeah.
There's no though in between the two.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the thing, is when I was co-creating the name, I had to look and see, is there an A? Because it's always, you think spearmint.
Oh, you know what? That's actually interesting. Not. I can't, now that I think about like spearmint gum, like spelled out on the gum package, I don't have the in there. But when I say it, maybe it's an Ohio thing, or maybe it's just whatever. But it's just like spearmint. Spearmint. Huh.
Yeah.
I think your logo has a leaf on it, right? So right. So visually, it's a quicker.
Yeah.
When you see the logo, it kind of totally makes sense. But so for the reasoning of that is, so I'm a vegan, and the way I got started is I started working with a friend of mine who does a vegan food truck. Well, he did a vegan food truck to start with when I worked with him. But now he has a restaurant here in Columbus. It's called Satan's Realm. They're on High Street. Yeah. And he does a lot of different Satan meats. So we did a play off of that, and we started doing some shirts for him. And that's kind of how I got started. So I'm kind of focusing on trying to help the vegan community. So that's part of my print business.
But that's really starting cool. Was with T-shirts for a local business, basically.
Right. Yeah.
And that's kind of the route you want to go, is like kind of business branding and stuff like that. Like basically if you need like a custom T-shirt type thing.
Well, I've kind of been debating that, because like Michael and I talked about this a little bit when I was starting to meet him, is that so there's a lot of print businesses that are doing like just T-shirts, you call in and get a T-shirt, whatnot. But I'm trying to do a little more gear focused to like in a way just pick like clients and then kind of work to be a little more community oriented with like what I'm printing. So my goal was to basically help earn a bit of money from my business, but also kick some money towards charities, which is why I really was interested in the Art Love Collective idea. So
yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
yeah, I think that once we start to be able to figure out who are the artists in Columbus and who is like looking for a group, we'll find that I don't think it'll be hard to, once we get into the nitty gritty people, I don't think it'll be hard to find people that are artists and but like don't want to be sellouts and they don't want to like dive into the corporate game and they want to try to support local and try to
Yeah.
do more like like organic or like environmental and all that kind of stuff, like where you're just trying to be more conscientious, maybe is a
Yeah.
good way to put it. Like you're just trying to give more instead of just making a buck, I guess.
Right. Right.
I don't think it'll be hard to keep finding those types of people if we look.
Yeah.
If we actually can tap into those people, that community, I would say.
Yeah. It seems like a lot of people now, especially like the young community, is like pretty active and trying to be eco-conscious and all that type of stuff. So
Yeah,
a little bit
and
more.
yeah. Speaking of eco-conscious, I remember you telling me you take as many steps as you can, like with the materials you use to try to use like recycled things or like things that are less
Yeah.
impactful, like
Yeah.
have a less of a print. Yeah.
Yeah. So for screen printing, it's really hard for me to say that everything I'm doing is like so environmentally friendly. Obviously printing you're using chemicals and whatnot, and it's hard to say I'm just 100% green or whatnot. But like, um, there's a lot of shops out there now who are trying their best to just use like non-harmful chemicals as much as possible and reducing waste and water waste and all that. So I'm going to try to focus on really learning that as I go and trying to be as eco-friendly as I can as I'm printing and with the inks that I'm using and even the garments I'm using.
Yeah, I could see that
Yeah.
definitely being a kind of like an angle that I haven't seen often for something like in the custom t-shirt or custom printing field. I mean, I don't know
Yeah.
that it's not out there, but it's certainly one of the first times that I've thought about, what sort of impact, something like printing might have.
Right. Yeah, and it's funny too, because like when I got into doing art and getting into kind of the business, it's like you kind of have this like idea of like, hey, I'm gonna just print shirts. It's gonna be really cool. I'm gonna do my own band stuff or whatever, and like you get into it and you start learning a little bit more about the technicalities and you start learning about like, wow, some of this stuff is really harmful. Like maybe I
Yeah.
shouldn't be using this stuff, and then you learn as you go, and you're like, okay, maybe I don't have to use that. Maybe there's other options. So yeah, it's definitely educational as you're going.
Yeah.
I think just going in with an awareness and starting to like just build like a conscientiousness. I think I think those, even in like small steps, definitely lead up to things. I've fantasized about, for example, like I've seen like a YouTube video where it just looked like some guy in his garage would just take a bunch of old plastic things and then grind them up into some like grinder and then melt it down to like mold shapes and create like lamps and like nothing. It didn't seem like anything too complicated, and they'd just be like blocks of like a bunch of like blotchy plastic colors.
Yeah.
But I fantasized about like doing something like that, where it's just cycling through like I like composting and we try to recycle a lot of things and all that.
Yeah.
But it'd be cool to be part of something where it's a small version of you know recreating, reusing and recreating kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and that's like some of the other stuff, like aside from my printing work, is I always like to try to recycle as much stuff as like I'm a garbage picker. I love going out on garbage day and be like, oh, God, somebody's throwing that away. Like I can totally use that. And I'll see it and I'll be like, okay, I'm gonna bring that back. I can use it. I just gotta wait for the right like idea for that thing. So I definitely will like pick up stuff and reuse it. So
Yeah. So do you mind kind of explaining the basics of screen printing? I mean, it can get pretty complicated. I know,
yeah,
but like for example, like basically screen printing is something that they did in the Roman ages and in like old like Chinese empires. Like I know like millennia ago, multi-millennia ago,
yeah.
they would have sort of a version of it. Am I right?
Yeah, so like printing has been going on for a really, really long time, and it's like impression printing is really old. And I think, I should know more about like the technical screen print history, but definitely it's an older form of printing stuff. But like for screen printing, what we typically do is we have to break down designs into colors. So if you're ever going to work with a screen printer, if you're not familiar, typically they'll ask you or look at your design. They'll say, how many colors is your design? And then they'll break it down because each color is its own screen. So you can think of a screen as being like a stencil. So essentially what you do is you coat a screen. Think of it like a door screen, it's got a mesh, and then you coat it with like a liquid. It's called emulsion, and what that is it's light sensitive. So essentially, you'll expose that to light, and what you'll have to do is you'll have to have like kind of like the copy paper we had like when we were in school. Like you do the notes on the overhead. You basically would make like a negative of your image, and then you would uh, put it on your screen and expose that to light. And wherever that's blacked out, it's going to leave that emulsion basically so it's soft, so you can wash it out, and that's going to make your screen. But everywhere it's not the positive image, it will harden the screen. So that's kind of how you create your screen to begin with. And then after that, once you've got your screen hardened and ready, then you can put your ink through and you put it in your press. And then you can, if it's multiple colors, there you can have different heads for each screen. If that makes sense, it's very technical. If it's going too fast, you can let me know.
No, we're just listening. We're taking it in. Yeah.
But at any rate, like you have like certain presses will have what we call heads. So each head will hold a screen or a color. And then however many colors you have in your design, then you'll need that many heads for it. Now, like there's been jobs
Right.
that like I've done that have been one colors that are super easy. There's been jobs I recently did that was 13 colors. So that was
okay.
like pretty heavy colored design.
Yeah.
So that would require 13 heads on a press. And then you would basically, once you've got them all set up, you basically have to register each color so that it fits in the design. And what we use like a registration mark, which is basically just a plus sign that helps us to like line it up on our press. And then once all the colors are lined up, then you can put your ink in and you can print it directly through this stencil onto the shirt or whatever you're printing.
I feel like I'd be terrified at station 13 or whatever, that last color, be like, you have a little bit of a flub up or something goes wrong, you just mess up all the 12 layers that you did before.
Right, yeah. And it can get very like technical out of that, but it also can be really, really simple too. So
Sure. Yeah. Fundamentally, like one color things, and you could press out a lot pretty fast, maybe.
Yeah.
Or at least get a groove. Yeah.
Yeah. So with doing more than one color, as the more colors you add, as you can imagine, it's just the more like you have to manage as you're printing. Like Tony was saying, if you get to that 13th color and it's like picked up a lot of your colors from previous, it can like look a little either off or it could be smudgy, and then you have to do a lot more management. Whereas a one color, you don't have to worry as much. You can just let it, you can just keep, I'm talking about automatic. If I'm just letting it run, you can let it run. But if you're manually printing, you obviously can see everything that's going on.
So I assume I assume when you design, when you make a design to be screen printed, then you work with layers on Photoshop or something kind of traditionally, and you just do a layer for a color, or you separate it out after you make the overall thing, then you kind of separate it out by its colors into layers. something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. So, I mean, it kind of works both ways. I typically don't, like when I'm working with somebody, I don't typically tell them how to design their artwork. So if they built it flat, or if they had a painting or something they wanted to print, obviously they won't have any layers or whatnot. You can like scan that in, then you can separate it. But if you have like Photoshop and you're working in layers, that's helpful for a printer to have those layers, because then it's easier to make each color separated.
So if somebody comes to you and says, I want this photo printed on a t-shirt, you can screen print that,
Yeah.
but it just takes a lot of layers, and you just kind of go into the system and say, like, separate this out by these key colors, like as close as we can, and it separates it out for you.
Yeah. So typically what we do in the print industry, at least that I do, is if you have something that's photo real, it's what we call process inks, and it works very similar to how your digital printer would print, like reproduce a graphic for you. So it has like,
Oh, so you have an actual fabric printer then as well?
No, you can manually or automatically print it, but the inks we have are similar to what your printer would have. It's a cyan, a yellow, and black. And what that does is kind of you overlay those, and they're very transparent inks so that they kind of blend together to make all those kind of colors. So that's what we call a process job.
But you still kind of do that manually, right?
Yeah, you can, and you can do them manually. It's really tricky manually because there's a human error element to it. You can do it. There's people who are really good at doing it. I've done it. It's tricky because you could print one shirt that looks great, and then the next shirt you'd be like, I pushed a little too in the cyan, and it's a little bluer than the other one. But if you have an automatic press, you can set how much pressure you want. Every it's similar to, what I mean, printing with a printer, like a digital print. You're printing on a garment. So
I never, for some reason, I had always thought, and I kind of, I foolishly kind of thought I knew how images were added to my clothing, but like, I thought whenever it was like photo real, then it would have to be like an image that was already like printed out separately, and then like, like you see a lot of the hobbyists with what do they call, the crickets or whatever, where they're like putting their own designs and stuff, like iron on stuff, that sort of thing.
They have those. That's like the transfer method. So there's all different methods of doing it. That's definitely one of them.
I never would have thought that you would be able to reproduce something photoreal. Would that still be like around like 10 or so stations or whatever, and you'd still be able to have enough stations to do it? You would think it would be like hundreds of stations to be able to like get all the gradients right and stuff like that to produce something photoreal.
Right. So with you would do it the similar way of like how a printer would do it. So you'd use the 4 colors.
Mm-hmm.
So you'd use the cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. But sometimes there's colors that are what we call like out of gamut. So like you'll have colors that are just like, say somebody has like, I've got a logo and it's this specific color that I have to hit.
Yeah.
And sometimes I can just look at it and I'll be like, that's probably not going to print right, and like those processing. So I'll pick another color specifically for that color. So that would be 5, if that makes sense. So you're using your 4 colors to kind of reproduce the image, except for like the colors that are difficult, then you just separate those ones out.
Yeah, I'd imagine
definitely complex.
Yeah.
And it's a simplification, it sounds like, when it gets to that point.
Yeah.
Like you'd have to force, and that's where like the creativity would come in place, beyond the technicality, is to be able to kind of like separate but still like convey what the original does, because if you separate too much and reduce the colors too much, you could like lose like the form of the original image.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask, how would you describe the quality of something that's printed by screen printing or silk screening versus other methods, and like what would you say maybe connoisseurs of screen printed either shirts or posters or whatnot what are they looking for? Like what kind of traits do they like? Why do we keep getting screen printing stuff when we can just print stuff, you know what I mean, digitally?
Yeah.
More automated printers.
Yeah.
You know, what is the appeal, I guess?
Yeah. So I think screen printing I think it's one of those things that I don't think is gonna go away anytime soon. I think because it's just like one of those techniques. It's kind of like vinyl in a way. Like, you know what I mean? People just love vinyl. And I think screen printing, there's just a lot of stuff you can do with screen printing. Like you can screen print like skateboards. I've seen people do, which is pretty cool. If people screen print glass and stuff. There's all kinds of different things that you can do with that. You can also do that digitally. Sometimes people like digital because you can set it up in a machine. But the thing about, in my opinion, digital is kind of pricey to get into. But it depends on, screen printing can also be pricey to get into. So I don't know, it's kind of whatever aspect you're really looking to do for it. So
I mean, I imagine, like, I definitely am better than others when it comes to looking at an image and knowing pretty immediately, even if it's vague, whether like, oh, this is actually a painting or this is actually a watercolor versus a print of a really good print.
Yeah.
I can always tell, even if it's like printed on canvas, and I'm like, I can tell. Like,
Yeah.
it's for me just because I've used these materials for decades now.
Yeah.
Like, I know what a watercolor really looks like, and I know sometimes you just can't hide it when you're up close.
Yeah.
But I think I would imagine screen printing kind of has that, maybe that feel where it's like there is a slight bit of bleed, maybe, where like we look for it, like just like in a record. It's like, it's nice that you see those grooves. Like there's something, it's gonna warp a little. Like all these things are kind of add to almost the flavor of it.
Yeah.
Like it'll wear well. And
for sure. I had a professor that I worked with. He was a photography teacher, but he also taught a screen print class. And one of the things he was trying to do is, I think he was trying to teach people how to kind of get prints to be like really clean and really nice, and like get like 20 good prints, So you'd have like students just going through like a ton of prints. Like you print and you print and you print and you print, and you'd be like, that one's bad, that one's bad, that one's got a little thing on it, that one's got a little nick or something in it. And at the end they would have 20 good ones. But the thing I really love about it is like those little imperfections are really cool because it makes it kind of unique. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't, even though you've got the same image, it's not the same image because it's got like some little intricacy. So that's kind of one of the, like you're saying, that's one of the things I really appreciate about it.
Like Tony, that do you remember some of the artwork that your mother-in-law let me carry in the shop?
Yeah.
There are a couple of those that were printmaking. Because I don't know if you know this, Tony, but it basically, if you ever see penciled in number where it says like 31 out of 83, like that's printmaking, right? Like that's the telltale mark. It's like that means it was the 32nd out of 83 total prints that were made of this, and I'm guessing successful ones, and doesn't count the fails.
I was gonna say 83 is a weird number.
I just made up a number. I think it's just whatever. I feel like I see a lot of random numbers. Like it's just like that's just when they stopped it. They didn't try to round it out to 200. I don't know. I'm not sure.
I feel like I've seen random numbers in that case, but
yeah. Good. Yeah. Is that right, Dave? Like
it sounds right. It sounds like doing like limited edition. Like I've only done so many. And then this is 3 of 83, or that's kind of what I do sometimes. Yeah.
I mean, to me, it's a classic way of it is limited edition. Like you literally can't make this again unless the artist decides to print that again, or like they still have the originals.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that aspect makes it really cool.
Yeah, and that's another thing. So Tony, you were saying something about you wanted to do some stuff, taking jobs, and I don't mind taking jobs and stuff like that, but there's another side of me that wants to kind of do kind of what Michael's saying, is just make some really cool prints. And doing like a small like manual press the way I'm doing it is kind of cool, because there's a lot of good talented people doing automatic stuff that can reproduce like thousands and thousands of shirts,
Yeah.
But I want to just do small runs of just like some ideas that I do, and just like, because I can get crazy if I'm just doing like 4 of them. I'm doing 4 hoodies and I've got them like all this crazy stuff on them, or I did stuff that you can't really do.
I would assume the cost of the automatic process is higher.
It actually can be cheaper depending.
Well,
So if you
cost of the product will be cheaper, I would assume, but the equipment for you to be able to automate your process would be far more expensive, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So it's kind of like a stepping stone for a lot of printers, is, unless you've got like an investor or somebody who's, got a ton of money to just throw into buying an automatic right away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Dave, you have some examples that you could show us, I believe.
Yeah, so I'll show you guys a couple of things that I've done, and hopefully the video will be good on my end.
Yeah.
So we recently, talking about the Satan's Realm, my buddy's shop that he's done, his daughter works at the shop, and she's actually a baker there. So she came over, they came over to visit, and she made us a cake, like a vegan cake, just out of surprise. So, I thought that was like really cool.
Yeah.
She's super talented. It was super good. And we made her like a little apron. I don't know if you guys can see that or not, but we screen printed her a little.
Could you move it to your left a little bit? Yeah. There you go.
It might be backwards, but
that's cool.
Yeah, so we printed her a little logo. My wife designed the logo, and I printed her an apron so she could wear it at the shop.
That's a lot more subtle artistry on Satan's Realm than I would have thought. Yeah. I was expecting like big burly demon with the biceps rippling with the horns. I was thinking something not like just a little goat silhouette. I feel like that's tasteful, because you're not gonna like really turn off somebody that's like religious but also vegan.
Right.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
I think it's good marketing. To just kind of like play at it a little bit.
Yeah.
Right.
If you ever get a chance to go into the shop, it's fun. Like, he's got all kinds of like cool posters. I think he's got like a Bill Murray poster up there and stuff like that. It's just kind of a fun atmosphere. So
Bill Murray, what would he have to do with Satan?
I can't remember. It's just, he's got a lot of he's actually like makes a lot of fun pun dishes that he's got there too. Like he's Italian and all those kind of things going on. So yeah, really good. If you guys get a chance, it's really good. It's kind of like street food stuff.
Okay, you said it's on high, like Clintonville-ish area, or
if you know where Catalina's is, they're like right across from that. It's on like near North Broadway.
Oh, North Broadway.
Yeah, sure. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's around that area.
Yeah.
So, little plug for him, I guess. So this other one is one that I did. I don't know if you guys
could you to your left again? A little bit. Yeah. There
we go. So
this a little bit more to the left, please.
So this one, I don't know if you can see it, but this is like like what I would call multiple colors. This has like a white and a gray. It's kind of hard to see the gray because it matches the ground, but I don't know if you guys can see.
Yeah, there's a pattern on the inside of the letter.
See that little pattern?
Yeah.
So that's printed on there, on fabric?
So I created that little tiny like pattern, so it's a little like raised surface right there.
Right.
Oh, you can make so you're just not adding any inks to the
like checkerboarding it?
So, remember when I was telling you guys, so the first process when you got your screens and you have like what we call the liquid emulsion, and that you coat your screen with that, you can do another aspect you can do with screen printing, which is cool, is that you can make your stencil thickness like wider. So like, I'm exaggerating, but you can make it like thicker so that you can get more product down. So that's what we call like HD or high density.
Oh, okay.
So it makes it, you know what I mean? It's a little higher off of, and there's a lot of people out in the industry doing that now, but
How did
Right.
you make such a uniform stippled pattern?
That's actually in the graphic. So it starts with a graphic.
Oh, it's in the graphic. Okay.
Yeah. So then,
Because
like,
you use vectorized images, or you can use vectorized images,
yeah,
right?
you can do both.
Right.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, it kind of almost looks like a sporty, like a kind of like a sort of sports shirt or sports shorts kind of texture or something.
Yeah, kind of basketball. You got texture there. So then I'll show you guys. So this is one of the films. So this would be a positive. This is something I did for my band.
Oh, the Medusa. Oh, it says Medusa Projecto 2085.
Yeah. So this is this is a film. So this is what I would put on the screen, and this is what I use to like expose. So any of the black areas are an area where I can wash out the image in the screen. So once I've done that, then I can set it up on my press, and then it ends up being, the shirt.
Cool. So we saw that's the before and after.
Right.
Cool
so that's actually printed on this shirt with the black ink there. So
very cool.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like a horrible cut T-shirt either. It's got actually a little taper to it. It doesn't look like just flapping in the wind.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So
very
that's
cool.
So, and then I also, this is, screen printing aside, you were talking tech art.
Right.
One of the things that I've tried to play around with recently is I think it's kind of ironic that I listened to your first podcast that you guys were doing, or one of the ones you guys were talking about before. Mm-hmm. You guys were talking about like that scratch art.
Yeah, the scratch board or whatever it's called.
Yeah. And I was always thinking, like those are really fun, and I always see kids like doing kids art and stuff like that, and I'm like, it'd be really fun to try to do some kind of like technical kind of stuff with it. So what I ended up doing is I created just a couple designs, and then I ended up laser cutting.
Oh, cool.
So I just did a couple like little designs.
So you laser cut that out of the scratch board?
Yeah, so it just takes the top layer off. Yeah.
I didn't realize you could laser engrave scratch board. I guess that makes sense though.
Yeah. It's just like a thin layer. I imagine you could do it, just anything. You could paint on it and just like slowly take that layer off.
What do you use for your laser engraving?
We have a laser. I think I can't remember what the brand is.
Oh, you just got one at work that you use?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, if it's a big company, it's probably one of the bigger names, like an Epilogue laser or something like that. If they're really serious about engraving.
Yeah.
Yeah, that definitely looked like it turned out really well.
Yeah, it's nice. I kind of was kind of a play around. I was just playing around with it, but I really liked how it, just how technical it is and how it like has that shine with it. It looks really cool. So.
Yeah, I'm really interested in laser engraving. I actually pulled the trigger this week on just like not a I would definitely label it a beginner kit. But just like what the classic like eBay laser, the K40s. I've wanted one to play around with in the shop for a while and never did it. But it's so similar to 3D print. I mean, CNC in general is really similar. So 3D printing to laser engraving, I think will be a pretty smooth transition to add something to my tool belt. But certainly with it being like the beginner laser from China type option, there'll be some tinkering involved, which also for 3D printing is pretty heavily needed too. So I'm excited to get into that. But I have played with it a little bit with like a little diode laser kit.
Yeah.
But this is gonna be the first CO2 laser that I could actually like bring the house down with.
Yeah. Very cool. Yeah, I know what you're talking about, because like starting my business, I kind of bought like kind of a beginner level press, so I'm building up from the ground, and the press I got, it's good. It holds pretty good like registration and all, but the thing about it is like working from like a really nice press and going down to like kind of beginner, starting up again, building up.
Yeah, knowing what you have like at work versus what you got to go home and deal with.
your own thing, it's like how do I mod this to be a little better, So I'm
Well,
definitely
I
got
think that'll definitely
mindset.
help you though. You know what to target when you're making
Yeah,
your mods and stuff, and you know
sure.
exactly what. Well, especially like when you're making those investments on what do I really need? Like what should I put my money into? What can I skimp out on, but what do I really need to focus on? Like you at least went into it knowing that already versus
Yeah,
somebody. There's so many people, especially in screen printing. I mean, I've seen the kits out there, left and right of like start your own business. Here's this, you get a little heat press and this other press and go at it.
yeah,
And like,
yeah.
then you look at a
It is
YouTube
kind.
video of the process of like how messy it is. And,
Yeah,
you basically need to really dedicate some space and resources to doing it, especially at
yeah.
the scale you're doing it.
It is kind of like the Wild West when you look at the internet and you're like, okay, how do I get into this? But like, there's definitely people who have done it on a small scale and for super cheap. And like, I've seen guys that just like throw stuff together, and it definitely looks like I
Hmm.
just totally put this together using like bare minimum stuff, but they're getting results.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm sure a lot of that has to do with the technique. Am I right? If you could squeegee, if you could do that thing in a smooth way, and I think
yeah,
you were talking about that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's really about getting like just making sure you know how to make a stencil. And you can get like a gallon of emulsion. I think the cheapest I've seen is like $25 or something. It might even be cheaper than that, but like you can get like a gallon of that. And as long as you got like some kind of mesh, I've even seen people just take like a kind of like a mesh and like just staple it to like a frame, and you can make just a bare bones like screen out of that. So there's definitely like cheap ways that you could do it if people wanted to try it.
Okay. Yeah.
It's kind of you can kind of go the gamut. You can go like super like janky, just doing it at home just for fun, or you can go like super high technical. It's kind of why I like it.
Cool. Yeah. So, and just to let the audience know, I ordered, let's see, 7 sets of or 7 different designs
Mm-hmm.
of T-shirts, and we'll have that available for sale at that April 3rd show that I mentioned earlier. Um, and they all say Art Love Collective on it, and they're definitely meant to be geared towards Columbus local uh, people that support Columbus local art, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really excited about it, and we're looking forward to working on more projects and everything too.
Yeah.
If anything, if any inventory hangs out after that date too, that'll probably be prime for like some of the first items on the online store.
Right.
Sell store branded
Yeah.
merchandise for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just want to start filling up more and more merchandise. The shop's, not that big, but we want to keep going, even if we overfill the shop, the physical shop. We want to have that online shop available, and um, we're really gonna just keep filling in more and more, looking for more artists, looking for more different kinds of products. So I kind of welcome selling out of things just so we could fill it up with other things, and kind of drive our competition just within the group, and get all the artists to create new things. They might be proliferate, but or maybe they've been, if you haven't been very productive with your art making as an artist, and you join the group, like I swear I've seen a lot of these artists that they say that they hadn't done much in a while, even though they're pretty active. And once they join and put some stuff in, and then they might have had a taste of selling, or they didn't sell and they want to sell, and so they start to kind of pick it up at home and
Mm-hmm.
start churning out more work. It's exciting to see.
Yeah.
You had mentioned that your first job, or like the first job as Spear Prints was you, the what well I don't know if it was the first job, but the vegan restaurant was one of the big
Yeah.
first
Yeah.
projects, right? And then
As
some shirts privately or for your band, things like that. So,
Yep.
you went out of your way and, incorporated it and everything and trying to, make it a legit business. So, like, what would you say your next step is? Like, what's next on your to-do list to grow your business? Like, are you looking more towards, like, I know you mentioned, website. Are you looking at, like selling online or locally, or are you more so focused because you talked about doing your own design work? So if you don't want to do like that custom, order jobs from people, um,
Sure.
I assume you're, going to churn out some product and try to sell it somewhere, type of thing.
Yeah,
Would be next
exactly.
on your list.
Yeah, so like that's kind of I'm in the stages of like I'm always kind of doing random different projects. I've got like kind of a DIY thing that I do. So like I'd like to incorporate some screen printing into that sometimes, and like I really like the next step I need to do is I really need to like build my shop up. So like I was saying, I'm kind of like piecemealing. So and every once in a while, I'm gonna get like maybe I'll get a heat press next, and that'll give me some new capabilities of doing different products and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
So um, like really just getting more technology as I grow and more possibilities, and then kind of putting those products out there, and maybe even like once I feel more comfortable with my stuff here as I'm growing, then I'll start putting out more products and taking in more jobs as I
Yeah.
go. So,
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what I did with my business. I mean, I started 3 years ago and I just had, well, I did start with a 3D scanner and a couple of simple 3D printers and, just keep on, instead of, I keep my full-time job and do Protocep mostly as a side hustle with the goal of making it being the full-time thing,
yeah,
as soon as possible. But even with that being as soon as possible, most of what I generate through it goes straight back into equipment to expand my capabilities. Like I said, adding the laser, that's,
yeah,
the latest little thing, but, adding, with 3D scanning, like scanning gear, printing gear, yeah, camera equipment,
yeah,
tons of stuff. Like software is huge, just finding new softwares that help you out.
yeah,
So just kind of putting everything back into it until I'm getting to the point where like some of the stuff, like I said, like the laser's nothing fancy. Like yeah, I'd like a nicer laser to be able to do some, really churn out some product
yeah,
consistently. But I always start with something really basic and then get the nice one when I can pay for it with using
sure.
the old technology. And
Yeah,
just
for sure.
slowly growing up my shop too. Just whatever interests you or whatever you have had a need for it. And then before you know it, after a few years, you're like, darn, I've got most of the major tools that I'd like, beyond something
Yeah,
really crazy.
for sure. Yeah, it's definitely like kind of growing into your skin kind of thing. It's
Yeah,
like
that's a great way to do it, though. I mean,
yeah,
it's a lot better
yeah,
than, finding somebody to give you $50,000 of upfront
and
investment that you're
then
gonna
just
be
have to hustle it to make
dying
it
over. Yeah.
for sure.
This is making me think. Like I've talked about this before, or we've talked about this in Art Left Collective. But it's funny because I remember actually before we ever recorded a podcast and before we did our first issue of the zine, I remember there was a video, like a just an internal like a video meeting that we did as a group. And I said like one day we'll do a podcast, one day we'll do a zine. I remember that same day or that same week with on the agenda. I also um, said like one day we'll make a documentary kind of thing where just like and like I'm sure Dave that you've watched those like even like the PBS like artist
Yeah,
like documentary series docu series even
yeah,
before Netflix really
yeah, yeah,
where you just do these little kind of interviews and you see an artist that process and of course
Behind the
artists that
art,
have
Michael
more
Lay.
unique
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
No, well, in this case, I thought it'd be interested both of you guys, because I think, I mean, for my process, I think it would be interesting for people that liked painting or drawing, maybe. But with your stuff, I mean, both your stuff, like screen printing stuff and like 3D scanning printing, like etching, all that stuff, most people have no idea. And just to kind of even have a quick explanation of a basic process for both you guys and then clipping that together with other artists, it seems like that'd be really cool to do. I know that Dave has offered to have like host like some kind of like simple demonstrations basically of his equipment, and I might try to like apprentice and just like learning about it at least.
Well, I think that there would be plenty of opportunities in the future between screen printing with Dave and the Art Love Collective. I mean, you got so many kind of traditional artists that are churning out artwork, and putting it on a shirt is or something else, for example, or just making prints of that artwork. Certainly could see that being needed in the future.
Yeah. And I think it definitely, like, I could explain the process like through audio, but I think it definitely helps. Like, it's one of those fields.
Oh
that,
yeah,
like,
I didn't have an image at all of it. The only reason I have an image is because I've watched some YouTube videos of the screen printing process before, where I could kind of like visualize a little something.
Yeah. But those visuals definitely help to like actually, because when you see it, you're like, oh, okay, that's what he's talking about, So
yeah,
it makes a lot of sense to see it.
Yeah, and it's just kind of cool to see a lot of people enjoy videos of just kind of like watching someone do their job, like operating equipment. That's what's nice about like someone that has done something that it took a long time for them to get decently good at it, and now like they're pros or masters like at that operation. But for the rest of us, it could just seem like it's magic work. Like, how could you ever do all that kind of thing? Like, how can you do all those processes and get it right? Especially if like you try it yourself and realize it's hard to get that one. I just keep imagining like that, like just when you're still in the emulsification, or like when you're squeezing out, getting it flat. I could just like imagine that being like this hard thing where you have to do it thousands of times probably to like really get it good.
Yeah, and it's funny because you say that there are, the screen printing process is not super difficult, but there's like little intricacies that you pick up as you do it more, and I'm sure you can say that for a lot of different industries, right?
Sure.
But like, I think the more you do it, the more you start like being a little bit more efficient about how you do stuff, and you start getting like that body mechanic like you're talking about. So like coating a screen, you've got like a scoop coater. It's like a long tray, and you just basically lean it against the screen, and you go up, and it coats the screen with that liquid emulsion like we were talking about. But even into that, there's like very specific little things that I do or that I've learned over time that somebody who's just starting out may not know, or like just about holding enough pressure to the screen or whatnot. If you don't do that, then it can drip out, and then you've got emulsion all over the floor, which I've done, and I've had the hard way. So little things that you pick up, and I guess everybody can say they've learned their, like you're saying, to people who are masters, they've kind of learned that little intricacies. And I think that's what really is so interesting, like you're saying about watching a process or watching somebody do their job, is it's like it's fun to watch somebody who's like really good at what they do.
Oh yeah, that's I think like for example, this isn't that random. Have you guys seen the glass blowing show on Netflix called Blown Away? Have either of you guys seen that?
Yeah,
I have.
My wife has been watching that. I've caught snippets here and there, but yeah, the glass blowing process in general. I went and watched it in person once, and
you have.
Yeah, it's amazing to watch that sort of thing.
It's that really still. And I had a roommate in college that was a major, and I took a sculpture class in the building at OSU that was shared with the glass blowing studio. So I've seen enough times too.
I had to park out there on West Campus.
Oh, the West Campus, yeah.
Where the glass blowing is, I don't even. If you ask somebody where the glass blowing studio is at OSU, and they know, then you know that they actually went to OSU, because that's the only way that you would. Well,
that's true.
I'm sure there's a lot of OSU students that don't know where it is.
Right.
No, exactly. Yeah, right. But like that show, it's a good version of a competition show, kind of like America's Top Model or some kind of makeup show. There's a lot of them now. But yeah, I think, and I think even as we go more into social media, like video, YouTube, like kind of world, rather than like a show world, I think a lot of us, and maybe because of like our isolationism, I think a lot of us are more interested in like the depths of things instead of just liking an art or just liking a show. Like even like, I don't know about you guys, but if I like a show or a movie enough, I'll watch multiple like movies and shows about the making of that show or movie too. Like that stuff's cool for me. That's like deep nerd and whatever. Like the people that watch all the bonus scenes on a new Blu-ray that has all the New Zealand footage in the Lord of the Rings or something.
I think that's definitely like a part of like, appreciating something is like having that connection to it, like you're saying, like if you love that show so much, it's like you've had that connection to it. So you're like, yeah, I really want to see how they made that kind of thing. It's similar with like, what you're saying with processes. I think if like
exactly
people who like want to get into screen printing or learn this, for example, want to learn, or I've screen printed once, and I'm really interested because I've done it and I want to keep doing it. That's definitely like I would really want to watch, because I've watched guys who are really good printers, and like that's how I learned and got better. I just watch them,
Yeah, I mean, as a kid, I still somewhat get mesmerized because in the end, I do appreciate a lot of different art. But for me, I still get mesmerized by comics. Good comics, well illustrated, well thought out graphic novels. And as a kid, it's just magic. It's still kind of magic, but I get closer and closer to understanding. Like now, I know how that would be made. Like it's impressive, but not so impossible.
Right.
But yeah, watching videos, like watching like just like hearing, and I've been listening to like podcasts of artists just talking, just really successful artists that have really been through the gambit and been through the ringer and a bunch of challenging kind of art. But just hearing them talk and realizing that they're human, like it'd be cool to see like a screen printer or like 3D printing, where if you're some random person that is into that stuff but like really has no idea and doesn't know anyone that knows anything about it, but you hear someone talk about it and go like, and like for example, Tony, if you just like if you said things like, man, this thing took me forever to learn, it's just like, oh, that's nice, because it's a lot. I think it's a lot more uplifting to hear that it was like really hard. It took lots of trial and error versus like, yeah, I'm just awesome at this. Like I'm so smart and figured it out on the first try. It's like, yeah, right. Like it's not that way. and if you want to buy one and you're looking up on YouTube, I think I'd want to hear that kind of. It'd be like encouraged. It's like, I think I could beat this person. It's like, yeah, go for it. Like it took me 100 tries, but you can do it in 20. I believe in you.
It sounded like you had said that you had first gotten exposed to some screen printing in school.
Yeah.
So like I'm sorry, was that in college? Refresh my memory.
Oh yeah. So I did go to school for learning printing, and I majored in screen printing. I had like photography as well as some other things. But
okay. So like a specialty school specifically for printing.
Well, my degree was in visual communications.
Okay.
But my major was in printing.
Oh, okay. I see.
Well, yeah, so then within printing.
Yeah. So I've done a little bit of like photography. I've done some video stuff and just graphics and different things. But like my major, my focus was in printing. Yeah.
So I guess that leads in still to my other question of do you think that now, because I always I'm on the edge on a lot of things. Like in college I was in Japanese major, and I still am glad that I did that, because I still don't think that I would. Well, I guess beyond like just moving to the country and learning, I wouldn't have learned it. Like I couldn't have learned it otherwise, personally.
Right.
Maybe there's somebody else, but it's not like one of those things in my mind that you can currently just learn off of YouTube.
you kind of want to
there's just
push
so much.
yourself.
There's so much
Yeah.
stuff that you can learn off of YouTube now. But I feel confident in saying that I wouldn't be able to learn Japanese off of YouTube if I didn't have something else.
Fair enough.
But
Yeah.
something like 3D printing or even 3D scanning to an extent,
Hmm.
or 3D modeling, or I'm sure screen printing. Like there's so much out there on YouTube to where you can learn just so much. I know, back in high school, where I thought like, oh, well, no, it was middle school, so we're talking like 98, and
Yeah.
and I'm telling myself, on my Windows 98 desktop, I'm like, man, I'd love to do like 3D modeling someday to be able to like make a video game, as I play a video game. And
Right.
my brother at the time was going to the Art Institute of Pittsburgh, which is now I think closed, but
I
the but he had a roommate that was in 3D modeling, and I got some like bootleg 3D modeling program that was just horrible. And like
Yeah.
I don't even know if it was horrible by today's standards. It's horrible, but like
Right.
back in the day, there was a big old book that was included with it on like how to use it. And then
Right.
me in 8th grade trying to figure out how to do it immediately gave
Wow.
up. Like the combination of computers being limited at the time, and like an 8th grader trying to turn through this technical manual of how to use the software while not having any grasp of where to begin. Like, yeah, this tells you
Right.
how to work the software, but how do you actually do like 3D art?
Yeah.
It was so difficult and gave up. But now, decades later, you can go onto YouTube and you can learn so much. You can go online and you can literally download a free program that's miles better than any program you could have gotten back in the day. And
Oh.
and not only that, you can go online and find thousands of tutorials on how to do very specific things within it. So like, I guess that long-winded explanation of what I'm experiencing leads me to my question of, do you think that there's a benefit of going to school to learn screen printing, when I know that there's a lot of like, entrepreneur channels and things like that out there on YouTube that would, I'm sure, claim to like teach you the ins and outs of screen printing so you can start your own business type of thing? What's your take on that? I'd be curious.
My advice, and this here, so I'll give you my experience. So my experience when I was in high school, I tried to like work with a guy who was in town. He was kind of like one of the local screen print guys, and basically I was like, I'll basically work for free. I'll just hang around. I just want to learn. And I think the guy
Get out
was
of here,
just
kid.
yeah, exactly. He's like, obviously he's probably worried about his business and everything. So he's probably like, I can't take you on right now. So it was like really tough for me to get into it. So then I kind of moved on and I did some art stuff. And then later on, I like went to Columbus College of Art and Design down here, and I met a bunch of dudes that were doing that. And they kind of inspired me to go back and like, my one friend was doing these massive prints, like they were like, wall size prints. They were huge. Like, I was like, wow, that's like amazing. That's awesome. It's kind of like the Andy Warhol kind of thing. So it was like really inspiring to see that. So like, I decided like at that point, I was like, I'm going to try to get into this. So I went back and I went to BGSU, did their program for printing and stuff, and got out. And then I got my job down here in Columbus. So that's kind of my route. But for people wanting to get in, you don't have to go to school for it. If you can find somebody who's good, I mean, you can definitely do online tutorials. Like you can learn how to do it at a small scale. And I would say probably start small because it's easy. You can very easily get an expensive hobby. So like learn the basics, like, everything you need to know basic and as cheap as possible first, so you know what you're doing, and then you can kind of step up and say, okay, like now I'm kind of working on a little bit more intricate stuff is probably my suggestion.
Yeah. So I guess it kind of circles back to the conversation we were having earlier of probably the benefit of you going to school specifically for screen printing is when it came time for you to like pull the trigger and say, I do want to start a business doing this for myself. You knew you had already trialed out bunches of equipment through college, and you're one think of like, yeah, this is useless. Yeah, you definitely need one of these, that sort of thing. Where you don't have that. Somebody else, you did trial and error on somebody else's time and dime, and now, or your own, I guess, as you take school, obviously. But yeah, building up to that. would certainly make that transition a lot easier, I'm sure.
Yeah. But like you're saying though, I mean, like, there are a lot of like YouTube things out there, but like I think the best way, and that'll get you at least kind of techniques and there are certain things that you want to know, right? But like you're saying, like you had to kind of immerse yourself in that like field to like be around it and like do it. Like that's the best learning for screen print. Like like actually doing it.
Yeah.
You really know, and like you can read a book, like you can read all the screen print books in the world, and you still probably won't be a good screen printer unless you like actually pull that screen and like do it enough.
Yeah.
Because it's
Definitely.
like, it's like drums or something. You know, it's like a body mechanic. You just get the feel of it after a while.
Yeah.
So
Awesome.
yeah.
Just FYI, we're at about an hour at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we've covered a lot of stuff. I seriously want to kind of continue this, maybe not through another podcast. I mean, we can have you for another podcast, but I definitely want to transition into getting good footage of your equipment. Just some like basic, and then we can like cut in between parts where it's more waiting, but like a run through of the process, not necessarily as instructional, but just kind of being like, here's an artist, here's an example of art making, and then here's another example. It could be very inspiring. I like watching that kind of stuff to inspire me. And sometimes it's nice to see something so complicated to kind of go back and go like, oh, I'm glad I just do ceramics. Like, like other people do all these things just to like make an art. And
Right.
some people, they stick to pencil and paper and just like go. And and some people with pencil and paper, they can't stand it because it's too boring. Like it's just not enough. Like this isn't expanding anything.
Right.
I.e., both you guys.
We'll make Michael more techie before it's all said and done.
Rub off on
I get more and more so every day. It seems like not my forte. Okay, cool. Well, thank you for coming on, Dave.
Oh so thanks so much for having me, guys. It's good to meet you, Tony.
Yeah, it was really nice meeting you. Yeah, I think it'd be great to see you at another event here shortly or something, and or around the shop or on another podcast. Yeah, it was interesting.
For sure.
Cool. Well, and thanks everyone for listening in, and we'll catch you on the next episode.
All right.
See ya.
Thanks, guys.